We're working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles and you're watching ASEAN in Focus. On tonight's headlines. The death toll from a landslide at an unauthorized campsite in Malaysia rose to 26. Search and rescue teams found the body of a man in a tight embrace with his dog. And take a look at these images of flooded neighborhoods and evacuees at a shelter in Indonesia's North Aceh. At least 5 people were killed. More than 70,000 rushed to evacuation centers in Malaysia after monsoon-triggered floods inundated the country's north. And French serial killer Charles Sopraj, who committed a string of murders across Asia in the 1970s and was portrayed in the Netflix series The Serpent, was expected to walk free from prison in Nepal today. The death toll from a landslide at an unauthorized campsite in Malaysia rose to 26. Search and rescue teams found the body of a man in a tight embrace with his dog. Take a look. Officials said the man's remains were brought to a hospital while the dogs were handed over to veterinarians. On Tuesday night, the remains of a young girl were also recovered. The girl is believed to be between 6 and 10 years of age. She was found 5 meters or 16 feet below ground. 7 people are still missing after a pre-dawn landslide on Friday hit the site located at an organic farm near the town of Batangkali in Selangor State, just north of the capital, Kuala Lumpur. The 26 fatalities include 8 children. The farm didn't have a license to run the campsite, and its operators will be punished if they were found to have broken the law. At least 5 people were killed. More than 70,000 rushed to evacuation centers in Malaysia after monsoon-triggered floods inundated the country's north. Take a look. Now, local media reported that 4 people died in Kelantan on Monday when 3 sisters were electrocuted while wading in the floodwaters and a 15-month-old boy drowned. The 5th victim was a 2-year-old girl swept away by strong currents in Terengganu on Sunday. The official Bernama news agency said more than 31,000 people have fled their homes. In Kelantan State, while more than 39,000 residents have been evacuated to temporary shelters in neighboring Terengganu after flooding began over the weekend. Malaysia's Meteorological Department forecasts continuous rains through today in several states, including Terengganu. Floods are an annual phenomenon in the Southeast Asian nation of 33 million people due to the northeast monsoon that brings heavy rains from November to March. In the same month last year, the country was battered by its worst floods in history when more than 50 people died and thousands more were displaced. Newly elected Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim visited affected areas at a school being used as an evacuation center in Kelantan on Wednesday. And take a look at these images of flooded neighborhoods and evacuees at a shelter in Indonesia's North Aceh. The number of flood victims at relief centers in Terengganu and Pahang continued to rise. Let's listen in first.
Berkisar antara rata-rata 50 cm sampai dengan 100 cm.
Ini apa penyebabnya menjadi?
Sementara penyebabnya karena luapan Sungai Kerto dan luapan Sungai Pira.
The Meteorology, Climatology and Geophysics Agency, or BMKG, is still monitoring the movements of two tropical cyclone seeds near Indonesia. The number of flood victims at relief centers in Terengganu and Pahang continue to rise as of 8 a.m. while dropping in Kelantan and remaining stable in Johor and Terengganu. In Terengganu, the Secretariat for the State Disaster Management Committee said the number of flood victims continued to increase from 36,009 at midnight to 36,231 this morning. According to the Drainage and Irrigation Department, the water level of 4 rivers in the state is still at the alert level. Ukraine's president thanked every American family in an emotional but defiant address to the U.S. Congress today, aimed at countering growing skepticism over U.S. military aid as Kiev's war with Russia drags into the new year. And he's urging lawmakers, many of whom were dressed in the blue and yellow of the Ukraine flag, to do more for his nation through the brutal winter months, pleading for more weapons and financial aid, saying aid was not charity. Take a look.
They burn down and destroy everything they see. They send thugs to the front lines. They send convicts to the war. They threw everything against us, similar to the other tyranny, which is in the Battle of the Bulge. Threw everything it had against the free world, just like the brave American soldiers, which held their lines and fought back Hitler's forces during the Christmas of 1944. Brave Ukrainian soldiers are doing the same to Putin's forces. Ukraine holds its lines and will never surrender. We have artillery. Yes. Thank you. We have it. Is it enough? Honestly, not really. To ensure Iranian deadly drones sent to Russia in hundreds became a threat to our critical infrastructure. That is how one terrorist has found the other. It is just a matter of time when they will strike against your other allies. If we do not stop them now, we must do it. Ukraine never asked the American soldiers to fight on our land instead of us. I assure you that Ukrainian soldiers can perfectly operate American tanks and planes themselves. Thank you for both financial packages you have already provided us with and the ones you may be willing to decide on. Your money is not charity. It's an investment in the global security and democracy that we handle in the most responsible way.
Now, President Zelensky flew in secret to the U.S. straight after a risky visit to the front line in Bakhmut, where Ukrainian and Russian troops have both endured heavy tolls over the past 2 months. Ukraine enjoys wide support in the U.S., but several hard-right Republicans have been critical, considering the aid a giveaway of taxpayer money. Kevin McCarthy, likely to become Speaker next month after a narrow Republican election victory, has warned he will not give a blank check to Ukraine, a comment seen as attempting to mollify his right flank. In tonight's other news, the Bureau of Customs reported that it has seized over 1.2 billion pesos worth of agricultural products smuggled into the country since January this year.
A total of 105 seizures of agricultural products were conducted from January 2022 up to present, with an estimated value, sir, na 1,205 million pesos. Ang kadalasang dinideclare, sir, ng mga consignee ay foodstuff, mga pagkain, sir, na kung saan ito'y panlahok tulad ng spring roll, patties, churros, steamed buns, breads, pastries, lobster balls at crab sticks. Ito po yung mga nahuli natin ito mga nakaraang araw po. Majority, sir, ng mga shipment na ating mga nasabat ay kadalasang pinanggalingan po nito, particular po yung mga sibuyas ay galing ng China. As of December 14, ang Bureau of Customs Action Team Against Smugglers or BATAS ay nagsampa na ng 100 criminal cases sa Department of Justice laban sa mga importers at customs brokers na sangkot sa smuggling dahil sa kanilang paglabag sa customs rules and regulations as well as dun sa mga particular na batas, yung batas with regards po dun sa agricultural smuggling at saka yung mga yung safety standard po natin. Dagdag pa rito, 21 administrative cases na po ang naisampa sa Professional Regulation Commission laban sa mga customs brokers na sangkot sa smuggling. Sa mga sangkot naman sa agricultural smuggling, ang batas ay nag-file ng 33 cases before the Department of Justice laban sa 33 importers and 11 customs brokers for unlawful importation of agricultural products. Out of the 33 cases, 22 were filed for violation of Republic Act number 10845. Ito po yung tinatawag natin na Anti-Agricultural Smuggling of 2016. The subject of the cases filed by the Bureau has a total dutiable value of 251 million with duties and taxes fees in the amount of 107 million pesos.
Now, he also said confiscated agricultural products are destroyed and are often buried on the ground because these are likely contaminated with bacteria and other pathogenic organisms. In other news, the alleged boss of Asia's biggest crime syndicate and one of the world's most wanted men has been extradited to Australia and arrested on drug trafficking charges. Chinese-born Canadian Che Chi-lop, 59, is suspected of being the leader of an Asian mega cartel known as Sam Gore, a major global producer and supplier of methamphetamines. He's expected to appear in Melbourne Magistrates Court to answer a charge of conspiracy to traffic commercial quantities of controlled drugs after being extradited from the Netherlands. Che, dubbed Asia's El Chapo in reference to Mexican drug lord Joaquin Guzman's nickname, faces life imprisonment if convicted. Australian police hailed it as one of the most high-profile arrests in the country, and the Sam Gore organization or the company is believed to launder billions in drug money through casinos, hotels, and real estate in Southeast Asia's Mekong region. In other news, French serial killer Charles Sobrage, who committed a string of murders across Asia in the 1970s and was portrayed in the Netflix series The Serpent, was expected to walk free from prison in Nepal today. Now, Nepal's top court ruled that Sobrage, 78 years old, who has been in jail in the Himalayan Republic since 2003 for 2 killings in the 1970s, should be released early on her health grounds. Prison officials told AFP that after receiving the relevant court papers, they would hand Sobrage over to the immigration authorities. The court ordered that he be deported within 15 days. A French citizen of Vietnamese and Indian parentage, Sobrage began traveling the world in the early 70s and wound up in the Thai capital, Bangkok. Posing as a gem trader, he would befriend his victims, many of them Western backpackers on the 1970s hippie trail, before drugging, robbing, and then murdering them. Suave and sophisticated, he was implicated in his first murder, that of a young American woman whose body was found on a beach wearing a bikini in 1975. Nicknamed the Bikini Killer, he was eventually linked to more than 20 murders. U.S. law enforcement took custody of Sam Bankman-Fried and were flying him from the Bahamas to New York, where prosecutors said 2 associates of the FTX founder have now pled guilty to charges related to the company's collapse. Bankman-Fried is wanted in the U.S. after the collapse of his FTX cryptocurrency group headquartered in the Bahamas, and on Wednesday waived his right to challenge an extradition request. U.S. Attorney Damian Williams announced Wednesday night that the FBI had taken the 30-year-old into custody and that he would be transported directly to the Southern District of New York. Again, let's listen in.
The indictment has 8 counts, but effectively, it outlines 4 different areas of misconduct. First, we allege that Bankman-Fried defrauded customers of FTX.com, the cryptocurrency exchange that he founded. Second, we allege that he defrauded lenders to Alameda Research, his proprietary hedge fund. Third, we allege that he defrauded investors in FTX. And lastly, we allege that he violated campaign finance laws.
Is there any way to categorize it?
It's so hard to compare these things, but I think it's fair to say that by anyone's life, this is one of the biggest financial frauds in American history. Bankman-Fried and his co-conspirators stole billions of dollars from FTX customers. He used that money for his personal benefit, including to make personal investments and to cover expenses and debts of his hedge fund, Alameda Research. Secondly, and relatedly, we charge that Bankman-Fried lied to Alameda's lenders about the source of the money that he was using to pay those debts. Fourth, we charge that Bankman-Fried violated federal campaign finance laws by causing tens of millions of dollars in illegal campaign contributions to be made to candidates and committees associated with both Democrats and Republicans. These contributions were disguised to look like they were coming from wealthy co-conspirators, when in fact, the contributions were funded by Alameda Research with stolen customer money. And all of this dirty money was used in service of Bankman-Fried's desire to buy bipartisan influence and impact the direction of public policy in Washington.
Separately, the Second Commodity Future Trading Commission, or CFTC, announced they had filed civil suits against Ellison and Wang and that they were cooperating, which should lead to a more lenient judgment in both cases. The CFTC estimates that $8 billion in funds were misappropriated from FTX customer accounts. Bankman-Fried, a Bahamas permanent resident, spent the past 9 days in Nassau's Fox Hill prison, weighing his choices before telling the Nassau Magistrate Court Wednesday that he would not fight extradition. According to U.S. media, his attorneys had been attempting to negotiate with U.S. justice authorities for his release on bail. The UN Security Council called for Myanmar's junta to release Aung San Suu Kyi as it adopted its first ever resolution on the situation in the turmoil-ridden Southeast Asian country. The 15-member council has been split on Myanmar for decades and was previously only able to agree on formal statements about the country, which has been under military rule since February 2021. Take a look.
The Security Council's progress in taking action on the serious crisis in Myanmar and junta's threats to international peace and stability. Despite the positive elements contained in the resolution and the challenges to adoption, we would have liked to see a stronger text. We are clear this is only a first step. As such, the National Unity Government calls on the UNSC, building on this resolution, to take further and stronger action to ensure the swift end of the military junta.
With this resolution, the Security Council demands an immediate end to violence, respect for human rights, concrete and immediate action to implement ASEAN's 5-point consensus, and to restore the democratic will of the people of Myanmar. The Council gives its full support to ASEAN. The Council also urges the immediate release of all arbitrarily detained prisoners, including President Win Myint and State Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi, and calls for full humanitarian access so we can get aid to those who need it. We stand with the people of Myanmar, and it is time for the junta to return the country to them. Thank you.
Now, as we heard there, the resolution urges the junta to immediately release all arbitrarily detained prisoners, including Aung San Suu Kyi and ex-President Win Myint. It also demands an immediate end to all forms of violence and asks for all parties to respect human rights, fundamental freedoms, and the rule of law. The adoption marked a moment of relative council unity in a year in which divisions have been heightened by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And finally, in our news, Indonesia will ban exports of bauxite next year, according to President Joko Widodo, in his latest move to boost domestic processing industries. Now, the country was in 2020 the world's 5th biggest producer of bauxite, which is used in making aluminum, with close to 21 million tons, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. Most of the exports went to China. President Widodo said the government aimed to replicate the development of nickel processing in the archipelago after it stopped exports of the raw mineral in 2020. Since then, the resource-rich country has drawn investments mostly from China to build shelters. Indonesia, once the world's biggest exporter of nickel ore, is locked in a trade dispute with the European Union over the export ban on the key mineral, which is used to make batteries for electric vehicles, stainless steel, and mobile phones. The Southeast Asian country has also been criticized for its protectionist measures aimed at prioritizing supply and price stability domestically. Earlier this year, it temporarily prohibited shipments of coal and palm oil. And that's all we have for you tonight. As my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And that's it for tonight's broadcast of ASEAN in Focus. Stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.